John. "Othor," announced Sir Jeremy Riker, "beyond a doubt. And this one was Jaffa Flowers." He turned the corpse over with his foot, and the dead white face stared up at the overcast sky with blue, blue eyes. They were Ben Stark's men, both of them. My uncle's men, John thought numbly. He remembered how he pleaded to ride with them. Gods, I was such a green boy. If he'd taken me, it might be me lying here. Jaffa's right wrist ended in the ruin of torn flesh, splintered bone left by ghost jaws. His right hand was floating in a jar of vinegar back in Maester Aemon's tower. His left hand, still at the end of his arm, was as black as his cloak. "Gods have mercy," the old bear muttered. He swung down from his garron, handing the reins to John. The morning was unnaturally warm. Beads of sweat dotted the Lord Commander's broad forehead like dew on a melon. His horse was nervous, rolling her eyes, backing away from the dead men as far as her lead would allow her. John led her off a few paces, fighting to keep her from bolting. The horses did not like the feel of this place. For that matter, neither did John. The dogs liked it least of all. Ghost had led the party here. The pack of hounds had been useless. When Bass the kennel master had tried to get them to take the scent of the severed hand, they'd gone wild, yowling and barking, fighting to get away. Even now they were snarling and whimpering by turns, pulling at their leashes while Chet cursed them for curs. "'Tis only a wood," John told himself, "and they're only dead men." He'd seen dead men before. Last night he dreamt the Winterfell dream again. He was wandering the empty castle, searching for his father, descending into the crypts. Only this time the dream had gone further than before. In the dark he'd heard the scrape of stone on stone. When he turned he saw the vaults were opening, one after another. As the dead kings came stumbling from their black graves, John had woken in pitch dark, his heart hammering. Even when Ghost leapt on the bed to nuzzle at his face, he could not shake his deep sense of terror. He dared not go back to sleep. Instead he'd climbed the wall and walked, restless, until he saw the light of dawn off the east. It was only a dream. I'm a brother of the Night's Watch now, not a frightened boy. Samwell Tarly huddled beneath the trees, half hidden behind the horses. His fat round face was the colour of curdled milk. So far he'd not lurched off to the woods to retch, but he'd not so much glanced at the dead men either. "I can't look," he whispered miserably. "You have to look," John told him, keeping his voice low so the others would not hear. "Maester Aemon sent you to be his eyes, didn't he? What good are eyes if they're shut?" "Yes, but I'm such a coward, John." John put a hand on Sam's shoulder. "We have 12 rangers with us, and the dogs, even Ghost. No one'll hurt you, Sam. Go ahead and look. The first look is the hardest." Sam gave a tremulous nod, working up his courage with a visible effort. Slowly he swiveled his head. His eyes widened, but John held his arm so he would not turn away. "Sir Jeremy," the old bear said gruffly, "Ben Stark had 6 men with him when he rode from the wall. Where are the others?" Sir Jeremy shook his head. "Would that I knew." Plainly Mormont was not pleased with that answer. "2 of our brothers butchered almost within sight of the wall, yet your rangers heard nothing, saw nothing. Is this what the Night's Watch has fallen to? Do we still sweep these woods?" "Yes, my lord, but—" "Do we still mount watches?" "We do, but—" "This man wears a hunting horn." Mormont pointed to Othar. "Must I suppose he died without sounding it, or have your rangers all gone deaf as well as blind?" Sir Jeremy bristled, his face taut with anger. "No horn was blown, my lord, or my rangers would have heard it. I do not have sufficient men to mount as many patrols as I should like, and since Benjen was lost, we have stayed closer to the wall than we were wont to do before, by your own command." The old bear grunted. "Yes, well, be that as it may." He made an impatient gesture. "Tell me how they died." Squatting beside the dead man he'd named Jaffa Flowers, Sir Jeremy grasped his head by the scalp. The hair came out between his fingers, brittle as straw. The knight cursed and shoved at the face with the heel of his hand. A great gash in the side of the corpse's neck opened like a mouth, crusted with dried blood. Only a few ropes of pale tendons still attached the head to the neck. This was done with an axe.
Aye,
muttered Dywin, the old forester.
like the axe that Othor carried, my lord.
John could feel his breakfast churning in his belly, but he pressed his lips together and made himself look at the second body. Othor had been a big, ugly man, and he made a big, ugly corpse. No axe was in evidence. John remembered Othor. He'd been the one bellowing the bawdy song as the rangers rode out. His singing days were done. His flesh was blanched white as milk, everywhere but his hands. His hands were black like Jeffer's. Blossoms of hard-cracked blood decorated the mortal wounds that covered him like a rash, breast and groin and throat. Yet his eyes were still open. They stared up at the sky, blue as sapphires. Sir Jeremy stood. The wildlings have axes too. Mormont rounded on him.
So you believe this is Mance Rayder's work? This close to the wall?
Who else, my lord? John could have told him. He knew. They all knew. Yet none of them would say the words. The others are only a story, a tale to make children shiver. If they ever lived at all, they are gone 8,000 years. Even the thought made him feel foolish. He was a man grown now, a black brother of the Night's Watch, not the boy who'd once sat at old Nan's feet with Bran and Robb and Arya. Yet Lord Commander Mormont gave a snort.
If Benjen Stark had come under wildling attack half a day's ride from Castle Black, he would have returned for more men, chased the killers through all 7 hells, and brought me back their heads.
Unless he was slain as well, Sir Jeremy insisted. The words hurt, even now. It had been so long it seemed folly to cling to the hope that Benjen Stark was still alive, but Jon Snow was nothing if not stubborn. It has been close to on half a year since Benjen left us, my lord, Sir Jeremy went on. The forest is vast. The wildlings may have fallen on him anywhere. I'd wager these two were the last survivors of his party on their way back to us, but the enemy caught them before they could reach the safety of the wall. The corpses are still fresh. These men cannot have been dead more than a day.
No,
Samwell Tarly squeaked. John was startled. Sam's nervous, high-pitched voice was the last thing he was expecting to hear. The fat boy was frightened of the officers, and Sir Jeremy was not known for his patience. I did not ask for your views, boy, Riker said coldly.
Let him speak, sir,
John blurted. Mormont's eyes flicked from Sam to John and back again.
If the lad has something to say, I'll hear him out. Come closer, boy. We can't hear you behind the horses.
Sam edged past John and the Garrons, sweating profusely. My lord, it can't be a day, or... Look, the blood.
Yes,
Mormont growled impatiently.
Blood, what of it? He soils his small clothes at the sight of it,
Chet shouted out, and the rangers laughed. Sam mopped at the sweat of his brow. You can see where John Direwolf, you can see where he tore off that man's hand, and yet the stump hasn't bled. Look. He waved a hand. My father, Lord Randall, he made me watch him dress animals sometimes when, after... Sam shook his head from side to side, his chins quivering. Now that he'd looked at the bodies, he could not seem to look away. A fresh kill. The blood would still flow, my lords. Later it would be clotted like a jelly, thick and... He looked as though he were going to be sick. This man, look at his wrists, it's all crusty, dry, like... John saw at once what Sam meant. He could see the torn veins of the dead man's wrist, iron worms in the pale flesh. His blood was a black dust. Yet Jeremy Riker was unconvinced. If they'd been dead much longer than a day, they'd be ripe by now, boy. They don't even smell. Dywin, the gnarled old forester who liked to boast that he could smell snow coming on, sidled closer to the corpses and took a whiff.
Well, they're no pansy flowers, but my lord has the truth of it. There's no corpse stink.
They aren't rotting, Sam pointed, his fat finger shaking a little. Look, there's no maggots or worms or anything. They've been lying here in the woods, but they They haven't been chewed or eaten by animals. Only Ghost. Otherwise they're
untouched, John said softly. And Ghost is different. The dogs and horses won't go near him.
The rangers exchanged glances. They could see it was true, every man of them. Mormont frowned, glancing from the corpses to the dogs.
Chet, bring the hounds closer.
Chet tried, cursing, yanking on the leashes, giving one animal a kick of his boot. Most of the dogs just whimpered and planted their feet. He tried dragging one. The bitch resisted, growling and squirming as if to escape her collar. Finally she lunged at him. Chet dropped the leash and stumbled backwards. The dog leapt over him and bounded off into the trees.
This is all wrong, Semtali said earnestly. The blood. There's bloodstains on their clothes and their flesh, dry and hard, but there's none on the ground or anywhere. With those...
Sam made himself swallow, took a deep breath.
With those wounds, terrible wounds, there would be blood all over, wouldn't there?
Daiwin sucked at his wooden teeth.
Might be they didn't die here. Might be someone brought them and left them for us. A warning, is like.
The old forester peered down suspiciously.
There might be I'm a fool, but I don't know that Othar ever had no blue eyes afore.
Sir Jeremy looked startled. Neither did Flowers, he blurted, turning to stare at the dead man. A silence fell over the wood. For a moment all they heard was Sam's heavy breathing and the wet sound of Daiwin sucking on his teeth. John squatted beside Ghost.
Burn them,
someone whispered. One of the rangers. John could not have said who.
Yes, burn them,
a second voice urged. The old bear gave a stubborn shake of his head.
Not yet. I want Maester Aemon to have a look at them. We'll bring them back to the wall.
Some commands are more easily given than obeyed. They wrapped the dead men in cloaks, but when Hakon Daiwin tried to tie one onto a horse, the animal went mad, screaming and rearing, lashing out with its hooves, even biting at Keta when he ran to help. The rangers had no better luck with the other Garrons. Not even the most placid wanted any part of these burdens. In the end they were forced to hack off branches and fashion crude slings to carry the corpses back on foot. It was well past midday by the time they started back.
I will have these woods searched,
Mormont commanded Sir Jeremy as they set out.
Every tree, every rock, every bush, and every foot of muddy ground within 10 leagues of here. Use all the men you have, and if you don't have enough, borrow hunters and foresters from the stewards. If Ben and the others are out there, dead or alive, I will have them found. And if there is anyone else in these woods, I will know of it. You are to track them and take them alive, if possible. Does that understand?
It is, my lord, Sir Jeremy said. It'll be done. After that, Mormont rode in silence, brooding. John followed close behind him, as the Lord Commander's steward. That was his place. The day was grey, damp, overcast, the sort of day that made you wish for rain. No wind stirred the wood. The air hung humid and heavy, and John's clothes clung to his skin. It was warm. Too warm. The wall was weeping copiously, had been weeping for days, and sometimes John even imagined it shrinking. The old men called this weather spirit summer, and said it meant the season was giving up its ghosts at last. After this the cold would come, they warned, and a long summer always meant a long winter. This summer had lasted 10 years. John had been a babe in arms when it began. Ghost ran with them for a time and then vanished among the trees. Without the direwolf, John felt almost naked. He found himself glancing at every shadow with unease. Unbidden, he thought back of the tales that old Nan used to tell them when he was a boy at Winterfell. He could almost hear her voice again, and the click, click, click of her needles.
In that darkness the others came riding, she used to say, dropping her voice lower and lower. Cold and dead they were, and they hated iron and fire and the touch of the sun, and every living creature with hot blood in its veins. Holdfasts and cities and kingdoms of men all fell before them as they moved south on pale dead horses, leading hosts of the slain. They fed their dead servants on the flesh of human children.
When he caught his first glimpse of the wall looming above the tops of an ancient gnarled oak, John was vastly relieved. Mormont reined up suddenly and turned his saddle. "Charlie!" he barked. "Come here!" John saw the start of fright on Sam's face as he lumbered up on his mare. Doubtless he thought he was in trouble. "You're fat, but you're not stupid, boy," the old bear said gruffly. "You did well back there. And you, Snow." Sam blushed a vivid crimson and tripped over his own tongue as he tried to stammer out a courtesy. John had to smile. When they emerged from under the trees, Mormont spurred his tough little Garin to a trot. Ghost came streaking out of the woods to meet them, licking his chops, his muzzle red from prey. High above, the men on the wall saw the column approaching. John heard the deep, throaty call of the watchman's great horn, calling out across the miles, a single long blast that shuddered through the trees and echoed off the ice. Ooh. The sound faded slowly to silence. One blast meant rangers returning, and John thought, "I was a ranger for one day at least. Whatever may come, they cannot take that away from me." Bowen Marsh was waiting at the first gate as they led their Garans through the icy tunnel. The Lord Steward was red-faced and agitated. "My lord," he blurted at Mormont as he swung open the iron bars. "There's been a bird. You must come at once." "What is it, man?" Mormont said gruffly. Curiously, Marsh glanced at John before he answered. "Maester Eamon has the letter. He's waiting in your solar." "Very well. John, see to my horse and tell Sir Jeremy to put the dead men in a storeroom until the maester is ready for them." Mormont strode away, grumbling. As they led their horses back to the stable, John was uncomfortably aware that people were watching him. Sir Alistair Thorne was drilling his boys in the yard, but he broke off to stare at John, a faint half-smile on his lips. One-armed Donald Noyes stood in front of the doorway to the armoury. "The gods be with you, Snow," he called out. Something's wrong, John thought. Something's very wrong. The dead men were carried to one of the storerooms along the base of the wall, a dark, cold cell chiseled from ice and used to keep meat and grain and sometimes even beer. John saw that Mormont's horse was fed and watered and groomed before he took care of his own. Afterward he sought out his friends. Gren and Toad were on watch, but he found Pip in the common hall. "What's happened?" he said. Pip lowered his voice. "The king's dead." John was stunned. Robert Baratheon had looked old and fat when he visited Winterfell, yet he seemed hale enough, and there'd been no talk of illness. "How can you know?" "One of the guards overheard Clydas reading the letter to Maester Aemon." Pip leaned close. "John, I'm sorry. He was your father's friend, wasn't he?" "They were as close as brothers once." John wondered if Joffrey would keep his father as the king's hand. It did not seem likely. That might mean Lord Eddard would return to Winterfell, and his sisters as well. He might even be allowed to visit them with Lord Mormont's permission. It would be good to see Arya grin again and to talk with his father. "I will ask him about my mother," he resolved. "I'm a man now. It is past time he told me. Even if she was a whore, I don't care. I want to know." "I heard Hake say the dead men were your uncles," Pip said. "Yes," John replied. "2 of the 6 he took with him. They've been dead a long time, only the bodies are queer." "Queer?" Pip was all curiosity. "How queer?" "Sam will tell you." John did not want to talk of it. "I should see if the old bear has need of me." He walked to the Lord Commander's tower alone, with a curious sense of apprehension. The brothers on the guard eyed him solemnly as he approached. "The old bear's in his solar," one of them announced. "He was asking for you." John nodded. He should have come straight from the stable. He climbed the tower steps briskly. "He wants a wine or a fire in his hearth, that's all," he told himself. When he entered the solar, Mormont's raven screamed at him. "Corn!" the bird shrieked. "Corn! Corn! Corn!" "Don't believe it, I just fed him," the old bear growled. He was seated by the window reading a letter. "Bring me a cup of wine and pour one for yourself." "For myself, my lord?" Mormont lifted his eyes from the letter to stare at John. There was pity in that look. He could taste it. "You heard me." John poured with exaggerated care, vaguely aware that he was drawing out the act. When the cups were filled, he would have no choice but to face what was ever in the letter. Yet all too soon they were filled.
Sit, boy, Mormont commanded him. Drink.
John remained standing.
It's my father, isn't it?
The old bear tapped the letter with a finger.
Your father and the king,
he rumbled.
I won't lie to you, it's grievous news. I never thought to see another king, not at my age, with Robert half my years and strong as a bull.
He took a gulp of wine.
They say the king loved to hunt. The things we love destroy us every time, lad. Remember that. My son loved that young wife of his, vain woman. If not for her, he would have never thought to sell those poachers.
John could scarcely follow what he was saying.
My lord, I don't understand. What's happened to my father? I told you to sit, Mormont grumbled. Sit,
the raven screamed.
And have a drink, damn you. That's a command, Snow.
John sat and took a sip of wine.
Lord Eddard has been imprisoned. He is charged with treason. It is said he plotted with Robert's brothers to deny the throne to Prince Joffrey. No,
John said at once.
That couldn't be. My father would never betray the king. Be that as it may, said Mormont, it is not for me to say, nor for you. But it is a lie,
John insisted. How could they think his father was a traitor? Had they all gone mad? Lord Eddard Stark would never dishonour himself. Would he? He fathered a bastard, a small voice whispered inside him. Where was the honour in that? And your mother, what of her? He will not even speak her name.
My lord, what will happen to him? Will they kill him? As to that I cannot say, lad. I mean to send a letter. I knew some of the king's counsellors in my youth. Old Pycelle, Lord Stannis, Sir Barristan. Whatever your father has done or hasn't done, he is a great lord. He must be allowed to take the black and join us here. God knows we need a man of Lord Eddard's ability.
John knew that other men accused of treason had always been allowed to redeem their honour on the wall in days past. Why not Lord Eddard? His father here? That was a strange thought, and strangely uncomfortable. It would be a monstrous injustice to strip him of Winterfell and force him to take the black, and yet if it meant his life... And would Joffrey allow it? He remembered the prince at Winterfell, the way he'd mocked Robb and Sir Roderick in the yard. John himself he'd scarcely even noticed. Bastards were beneath his contempt.
My lord, will the king listen to you?
The old bear shrugged.
A boy king? I imagine he'll listen to his mother. A pity the dwarf isn't with him. He's the lad's uncle, and he saw our need when he visited us. It was a bad thing, your lady mother taking him captive.
Lady Stark is not my mother, John reminded him sharply. Tyrion Lannister had been friend to him. If Lord Eddard was killed, she would be as much to blame as the Queen.
My lord, what of my sisters? Arya and Sansa. They were with my father. Do you know? Pycelle makes no mention of them, but doubtless they'll be treated gently. I will ask about them when I write.
Mormont shook his head.
This could not have happened at a worse time. If ever the realm needed a strong king, there are dark days and cold nights ahead. I feel it in my bones.
He gave John a long, shrewd look.
I hope you're not thinking of doing anything stupid, boy.
He's my father, John wanted to say, but he knew that Mormont would not want to hear it. His throat was dry. He made himself take another sip of wine.
Your duty is here now, the Lord Commander reminded him. Your old life ended when you took the black.
His bird made a raucous echo.
Black!
Mormont took no notice.
Whatever they do in King's Landing is none of our concern.
When John did not answer, the old man finished his wine and said,
You're free to go. I have no further need of you today. On the morrow you can help me write the letter.
John did not remember standing or leaving the solar. The next he knew, he was descending the tower steps thinking, This is my father, my sisters. How can it be none of my concern? Outside, one of the guards looked at him and said, Be strong, boy. The gods are cruel.
They know, John realized. My father is no traitor, he said hoarsely.
Even the words stuck in his throat as if to choke him. The wind was rising, and it seemed colder in the yard than it had been when he'd gone in. Spirit summer was drawing to an end. The rest of the afternoon passed as if in a dream. John could not have said where he walked, what he did, who he spoke with. Ghost was with him, he knew that much. The silent presence of the direwolf gave him comfort. The girls did not even have that much, he thought. Their wolves might have kept them safe, but Lady is dead and Nymeria's lost. They're all alone. A north wind had begun to blow by the time the sun went down. John could hear it skirtling against the wall and over the icy battlements as he went up to the common hall for the evening meal. Hob cooked up a venison stew, thick with barley, onions, and carrots. When he spooned an extra portion onto John's plate and gave him the crusty heel of the bread, he knew what it meant. He knows. He looked round the hall, all heads turned quickly, eyes politely averted. They all know. His friends rallied to him. "We asked the Septon to light a candle for your father," Mathar told him. "It's a lie. We all know it's a lie. Even Gren knows it's a lie," Pipe chimed in. Gren nodded and Sam clasped John's hand. "You're my brother now, so he's my father too," the fat boy said. "If you want to go out to the weirwoods and pray to the old gods, I'll go with you." The weirwoods were beyond the wall, yet he knew Sam had meant what he said. They are my brothers, he thought, as much as Rob and Bran and Rickon. And then he heard the laughter, sharp and cruel as a whip, in the voice of Sir Alistair Thorne. "Not only a bastard, but a traitor's bastard," he was telling the men around him. In the blink of an eye, John had vaulted onto the table, dagger in his hand. Pip made a grab for him, but he wrenched his leg away, and then he was sprinting down the table and kicking the bowl from Sir Alistair's hand. Stew went flying everywhere, splattering the brothers. Thorne recoiled. People were shouting, but Jon Snow did not hear them. He lunged at Sir Alistair's face with the dagger, slashed at those cold onyx eyes, but Sam threw himself between them, and before Jon could get around to him, Pip was on his back, clinging like a monkey, and Gren was grabbing his arm while Toad wrenched the knife from his fingers. Later, much later, after they marched him back to his sleeping cell, Mormont came to see him, Raven on his shoulder. "I told you not to do anything stupid, boy," the old bear said. "Boy!" the bird chorused. Mormont shook his head, disgusted. "And to think I had such high hopes for you." They took his knife and his sword and told him he was not to leave his cell until the high officers meant to decide what was to be done with him. And then they placed a guard outside his door to make certain he obeyed. His friends were not allowed to see him, but the old bear did relent and permit him ghosts, so he was not utterly alone. "My father is no traitor," he told the direwolf when the rest had gone. Ghost looked at him in silence. John slumped against the wall, hands round his knees, and stared at the candle on the table beside his narrow bed. The flame flickered and swayed. The shadows moved round him. The room seemed to grow darker and colder. "I will not sleep tonight," John thought. Yet he must have dozed. When he woke, his legs were stiff and cramped, and the candle had long since burned out. Ghost stood on his hind legs, scrabbling at the door. John was startled to see how tall he'd grown. "Ghost, what is it?" he called softly. The direwolf turned his head and looked at him, baring his fangs in a silent snarl. "Has he gone mad?" John wondered. "It's me, Ghost," he muttered, trying not to sound afraid, yet he was trembling violently. Why had it gotten so cold? Ghost backed away from the door. There were deep gouges where he'd raked the wood. John watched him with mounting disquiet. "There's something out there, isn't there?" he whispered. Crouching, the direwolf crept backward, white fur rising on the back of his neck. The guard, he thought. They left a man to guard my door. Ghost smells him through the door. That's all it is. Slowly, John pushed himself to his feet. He was shivering uncontrollably, wishing he still had a sword. 3 quick steps brought him to the door. He grabbed the handle and pulled it inward. The creak of the hinges almost made him jump. His guard was sprawled bonelessly across the narrow steps, looking up at him. Looking up at him, even though he was lying on his stomach. His head had been twisted completely round. "It can't be," John told himself. "This is the Lord Commander's tower. It is guarded day and night. This couldn't happen. It's a dream. I'm having a nightmare." Ghost slid past him out the door. The wolf started up the steps, stopped, looked back at John. That was when he heard it. The soft scrape of a boot on stone, the sound of a latch turning. The sounds came from above, from the Lord Commander's chambers. A nightmare this might be, yet it was no dream. The guard's sword was in its sheath. John knelt and worked it free. The heft of steel in his fist made him bolder. He moved up the steps, Ghost padding silently before him. Shadows lurked in every turn of the stair. John crept up warily, probing any suspicious darkness with the point of his sword. Suddenly he heard the shriek of Mormont's raven. "Corn!" the bird was screaming. "Corn! Corn! 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 Corn!" Ghost bounded ahead, and John came scrambling after. The door to Mormont's solar was wide open. The direwolf plunged through. John stopped in the doorway, blade in hand, giving his eyes a moment to adjust. Heavy drapes had been pulled across the windows, and the darkness was black as ink. "Who's there?" he called out. Then he saw it. A shadow in the shadows, sliding toward the inner door that led to Mormont's sleeping cell. A man shape, all in black, cloaked and hooded. But beneath the hood, its eyes shone with an icy blue radiance. Ghost leapt. Man and wolf went down together with neither scream nor snarl, rolling, smashing into a chair, knocking over a table laden with papers. Mormont's raven was flapping overhead, screaming, "Corn! Corn! Corn! Corn!" John felt as blind as Maester Aemon. Keeping the wall to his back, he slid toward the window and ripped down the curtain. Moonlight flooded the solar. He glimpsed black hands buried in white fur, swollen dark fingers tightening round the direwolf's throat. Ghost was twisting and snapping, legs flailing in the air, but he could not break free. John had no time to be afraid. He threw himself forward, shouting, bringing down the longsword with all his weight behind it. Steel sheared through sleeve and skin and bone. Yet the sound was wrong somehow. The smell that engulfed him was so queer and cold he almost gagged. He saw arm and hand land on the floor, black fingers wriggling in a pool of moonlight. Ghost wrenched free of the other hand and crept away, red tongue lolling from his mouth. The hooded man lifted his pale moon face, and John slashed at it without hesitation. The sword laid the intruder open to the bone, taking off half his nose and opening a gash cheek to cheek under those eyes like blue stars burning. John knew that face. Othor, he thought, reeling back. Gods, he's dead! He's dead! I saw him dead! He felt something scrabble at his ankle. Black fingers clawed at his calf. The arm was crawling up his leg, ripping at wool and flesh. Shouting with revulsion, John pried the fingers off his leg with the point of the sword and ripped the thing away. It lay writhing, fingers opening and closing. The corpse lurched forward. There was no blood. One-armed, face cut near in half, it seemed to feel nothing. John held the long sword before him. "Stay away," he commanded, his voice gone shrill. "Corn!" screamed the raven. "Corn! Corn!" The severed arm was wriggling out of its torn sleeve, a pale snake with a black five-fingered head. Ghost pounced and got it between his teeth. Finger bones crunched. John hacked at the corpse's neck, felt the steel bite deep and hard. Dead Othor slammed into him, knocking him off his feet. John's breath went out of him as the fallen table caught him between his shoulder blades. The sword! Where was the sword? He'd lost the damned sword! When he opened his mouth to scream, the white jammed its black corpse fingers into John's mouth. Gagging, he tried to shove it off, but the dead man was too heavy. Its hand forced itself further down his throat, icy cold, choking him. Its face was above his own, filling the world. Frost covered its eyes, sparkling blue. John raked cold flesh with his nails and kicked at the thing's legs. He tried to bite, tried to punch, tried to breathe. And suddenly the corpse's weight was gone, its fingers ripped from its throat. It was all John could do to roll over, retching and shaking. Ghost had it again. He watched as the direwolf buried his teeth in the white's gut and began to rip and tear. He watched, only half conscious, for a long moment before he remembered to look for his sword. and saw Lord Mormont, naked and groggy from sleep, standing in the doorway with an oil lamp in hand. Gnawed and fingerless, the arm thrashed on the floor, wriggling toward him. John tried to shout, but his voice was gone. Staggering to his feet, he kicked the arm away and snatched the lamp from the old bear's fingers. The flame flickered and almost died. "Burn!" the raven called. "Burn! Burn! Burn!" Spinning, John saw the drapes he'd ripped from the window. He flung the lamp onto the puddled cloth with both hands. Metal crunched and glass shattered. Oil spewed and the hangings went up in a great whoosh of flame. The heat of it on his face was sweeter than any kiss John had ever known. "Ghost!" he shouted. The direwolf wrenched free and came to him as the white struggled to rise, dark snakes spilling from the great wound in its belly. John plunged his hands into the flames, grabbed a fistful of the burning drapes, and whipped them at the dead man. "Let it burn," he prayed as the cloth smothered the corpse. "Gods, please, please, let it burn." So,
Didn't expect this to be a zombie movie, did you?
well, I've read this story before, so actually, yes, I did.
Well, when you first read it.
Yes, I did.
Oh, okay.
You gotta remember, I started reading the books after the show started.
That's true, fair enough.
You read them, like, way before the show started.
Yeah.
So.
Either way.
But the prologue should give you a clue that there's some shit gonna happen. To be fair, I don't know if you know it's, like, when it's coming, so.
Although, you probably should have, with all the hints they were dropping. The animals wouldn't go near them. Hey, Othor didn't have blue eyes before.
Hey, when Ghost ripped the fucking hand off of that dude, there was no blood. And there's no blood on the wounds.
And there's no blood on the ground anywhere, so someone must have brought them here. Or maybe they walked here.
And then it's daytime, so they have to sleep.
Exactly. They can't handle the heat.
They tired. They just tired. They need rest. They just resting.
Exactly. They really were this time.
Deceased. No. They just resting.
You know, it makes me think, do they retain some of their consciousness, though? Because Othor, woke up and marched up, killed the guard and everything, but he knew exactly where Commander Mormont's room was.
Mm-hmm.
Was he, bumping around? Did he bump into a bunch of different rooms before he found it? Or is Othor still in there? His consciousness, what he knows. Did he know Mormont's room is right here, so I'm just gonna walk right up here?
What if they have, a hive mind, and, his memories and stuff are still in there, but they're being manipulated by, the hive mind?
Maybe.
Kind of like a hive mind using his memories to,
I could
make
say
him
it's
go up in there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He has no real
one
control
person,
of his own
and
autonomy.
when they control them, they basically absorb all their intelligence and information, and then they can use that as they will.
Yeah, maybe it's like that. Or maybe
That could be.
Maybe Othor does retain his memories, etc., and maybe he really just hated Commander Mormont for some reason.
That's what I'm saying.
Maybe there's a personal issue there. Because Mr. Flowers did not come attack the old bear.
Yeah, where is he? What's he doing right now?
That's true. Well, he's down in Maester
Eamon's meat locker.
Yeah.
That's not a euphemism.
I wonder if he's just if he's a real zombie, if he's just walking into the door over and over. Or, well, how did Othor get out?
The hive mind is busy controlling Othor, so he's just in a loop, just walking into the door.
Could be, maybe.
Walking Dead style.
But didn't well, Othor would have been in the meat locker too, right?
Maybe. Was it?
Maybe.
Yeah, I think they did say they put both of them in there.
So how did
Maester Aemon have
Othor
out to examine him.
Never put him back.
Yeah.
That's bad science practice. That's bad laboratory management.
And this is a legitimate question because I really don't remember what the other one did. Like, I'm not just saying it.
No, I don't either. I don't.
Oh,
yeah,
what's going to happen in the next chapter? Wink, wink. I really don't remember.
Me either. I don't. That's why I'm saying. But I'm saying, Maester Aemon, bad laboratory practice. You always clean up when you're done. You always put away your experiments. You always put away your chemicals. You always put your specimens away when you're done. Even if you're not, like, done, you still put them away.
Put your toys away when you're done.
He did not put his stuff away, and look what happened.
Mormon.
Jon almost got deep-throated to death.
Yeah. Jon did the White Walker equivalent of stepping on a Lego. When your kid doesn't put away all their toys.
Yes. Maester Aemon, this is all your fault? If you'd just... Well... I don't know. Then they would not have known what was happening.
That's true.
And Jon probably would not be vindicated.
Jon probably would have been thrown off the wall.
Yeah, because he was in deep shit.
Yeah, he almost stabbed Thorne.
Yeah, Jon, that was dumb. Control yourself, sir. Alistair Thorne is totally saying all this shit to get you riled up, to get you kicked out of the Night's Watch. Mm-hmm. Like, he's literally trying to get your goat, and you're buying into it, hook, line, and sinker. Like, Jon, relax. Like, I get you're very upset. Your dad was just arrested for treason. That's very upsetting. Everyone else knows except you. That's a hard pill to swallow. But you don't try to stab people because you're upset and they say rude things to you.
Or at least do it more inconspicuously.
Yeah, don't jump up on the table in the middle of dinner where everyone's there and lunge at the person going, ah.
Yeah, not a smart move. And all after he was a ranger for a day.
I know. He got to ride that high. Him and Sam had a great day.
To ride that high right in front of the fan that the shit was about to hit.
Yeah. Jon got to be a ranger for the day. Sam got to prove his intellectualness. Mormont said, well, you may be fat, but you're smart.
It's just a good day all around.
It was a great day for everyone. And then he ruined it. But once again, can I just say that every time we read a Jon chapter, I think we have to give a shout out to Ghost for being the bestest boy.
Yes, 100%.
He is always the goodest boy, every time.
And how smart he is.
Mm-hmm.
Wakes Jon up. Then he's going up the stairs and looks back like, you coming?
There's some shit happening up here.
I didn't just rip your door in half for no reason. Come on.
Yep. And he's the only animal that's, like, not afraid of them. Because he knows. He's direwolf. He's from north of the wall. He knows what the others
dealt
are.
With these before.
Or his mama did, anyway. Maybe that's why his mama left. She's like, F this, I'm not staying up here.
Do you think that's how dire wolves got so big? They're normal wolves, but feasting on the
others or something?
Meat of the walkers has helped them grow bigger.
It could be, because they're like magic.
Yeah.
Right? The others are magical beings, so maybe they're imbibing the magic by eating them.
You know, the hand was moving and everything, and Ghost, like, crunched his fingers and stuff. Do you think those fingers are still, like, wriggling in Ghost's stomach? Do you think he feels them?
That's a good question. I don't know. They're severed, right?
Yeah, he, like, cut off the fingers.
But there would still be tendons. Well, everything runs through your hand. Even if you chop them off, I would feel like the upper digits would still be able to move, right? If they're
Well,
severed.
I mean, in real life, it was severed near the bottom of the forearm. He shouldn't have been able to move his hand. He can move his thumb. There's a muscle there to move it. He can move it like this, but he wouldn't, be able to do the whole like crawling thing.
Like the thing.
Yeah. So already we've gone into the realm of
Yeah, but I don't think his
hand like crawling across the floor.
No, his arm wasn't his. Well, yeah, I don't remember where John chopped his arm off. At what part of his arm? But
I think they do say it was wriggling across.
It was wriggling across the floor. After John chopped it off, it was like wandering across the floor, like a spider. I don't know.
I always picture it.
That jumbling around in there.
In my head, I picture it as It from the Addams Family.
No, Cousin It.
No, not Cousin It. What was the hand?
The thing. The same thing.
Yeah, thing.
That's what I just said. I was talking about thing. Although I said the thing, I think its name is just Thing. Cousin It is.
I thought you were just using pronouns here.
No. Cousin It's the one with the hair.
Yeah.
I would think maybe they wriggle around a little bit until his stomach acid dissolves them. I don't know.
That's what I mean. I don't know, just something I thought about. Like, is that uncomfortable for you?
Poor boy. Do you need to go eat some grass to calm that tummy down a little bit there, bud? Seriously though, if it wasn't for Ghost, Mormont would probably be dead. John would probably be dead.
John would probably have been accused of it all.
Yeah, John would have been accused of killing Mormont to begin with.
And breaking the dude's neck, make him cosplay as an owl.
Also, Mormont. I like, what's running through that man's mind? He was asleep. And then all of a sudden, he hears all this ruckus. I think in the book it said he was naked.
Yeah.
He got out of bed naked. And he opens the door, and he sees John
fighting a zombie.
Being deep-throated by a zombie. While Ghost is eating the fingers of said zombie with the other hand.
That's when you just slowly shut the door again. This sleepwalking's getting too weird for me. I'm gonna go back.
I think after this, though, John may find that maybe he won't be in trouble anymore. What was the last thing Mormont said to him before that? You had so much potential.
Mm-hmm.
Now we gotta decide what to do with you. I think you'll just be happy that he saved you from the the winter zombie.
I was gonna say, killing a White Walker might save you,
right,
from persecution a little bit.
I know, and it's very interesting that he's chopping it all to pieces. No blood's coming out. How does he kill it?
Fire.
Burn it. You gotta burn it.
Well, I mean, we don't know. Chapter ended pretty quick.
That's true. It ended with John saying,
it burns him.
Yeah, John thinking, please let it be dead or whatever. Hope it's dead or something like that. Oh boy. Now what do? You have proof of zombies. Now maybe you could go to King's Landing and be like, dude, we need men for the Night's Watch. You don't understand. They're zombies. Because nobody believes that the others are real, right? Mm-hmm. But now they've just seen, like, proof that it's real. That the others are.
And the worst part is, you can't, like, take them back to King's Landing and show them because they don't function in the cold or the heat. They need the cold.
Yeah, I feel like if they brought it back to King's Landing,
it just would lay there.
Yeah.
Come on, saw it. Get up, do it.
Could you imagine King Joffrey and Queen Cersei just sitting there like, what? Why are you showing me a dead body?
Mhm.
I have way better things to do with my life right now.
It makes you wonder: are there stashed away winter zombies throughout Westeros?
Well, it's funny you said that because it's very interesting that right before Jon fights this Othor, he has that dream where he's in the crypts in Winterfell and all of the dead kings come out of the crypts.
Mm-hmm.
And then he fights the white. So I don't know if I want to intuit too much or if I want to. I just think it was a very interesting dream to have right before these events occurred. The crypts in Winterfell are like always described as this very creepy place.
Are you saying Grandpa Stark fucked a zombie?
I'm saying you cannot rule out the possibility that maybe the Starks and the others maybe are closer than we think they are. I don't know.
I don't know.
I feel like if I go into this a little
Or-
bit, I'll get into spoiler territory about stories we hear later.
Or is it that
Like the long night and all that, you know? Is that spoiler territory?
Or is it just that the cold is like a magic cold, and any dead it touches, it turns them into the White Walkers? So any like graves, say, pass, you get the classic zombie scene, the hands shooting out, and they're whites now.
I think they gotta do something to the bodies. Well, I don't know. Don't the Starks and all of them always burn their dead? No, they
got
don't.
the
They
crypts.
got the crypts. Well, then why isn't it that every winter
But they're pretty big coffins and big statues on top.
yeah, but why isn't it that every winter the Starks are trying to pop out if they need the gold?
Maybe they do. Maybe that's why they bury them deep underground. They just block off the door, and we can't go down there
So
now.
much easier to just burn the bodies. I think there has to be magic. Like, I think the others have to do something to make the bodies rise up out of the ground. Like, I think the presence of the others has to... Because the others, the others haven't been seen for how many years?
Didn't they say that the swords that they hold, like, does something like protecting or something like that?
Are they Valyrian steel?
No, they're not Valyrian steel.
Well, then... what's it gonna do?
I don't know, but I thought Eddard says something when he's in the tomb with Robert to the reader about them, like, rusting, and some have rusted away.
I think he just talks about how they're rusted away. I don't know. God, it feels like it's been so long ago since we read that chapter.
I feel like it has. There's a lot of chapters in this book.
But either way,
I feel like now John's story is really starting.
I feel like John's story officially just started.
Yeah.
He finally feels like a member of the Night's Watch. He got to go out on a ranging. Sam kicked butt with his intellect. God, I can't say that.
Intellectually bitch slapped Mormont and the rest of the brothers.
And Jeremy Riker, who thinks he knows it all now that he's the first ranger. Still don't know what happened to Benjen Stark.
No,
'Cause these
Benjen
guys-
Stark and his... They only found 2, so there's still 4 missing.
Yep.
It was Benjen and 6 others, right?
Yep.
Or was Benjen part of the 6? I can't remember.
I think
Either
it was
way.
Benjen and his 6 men, because they said he had 6 men. We
Okay.
found 2, 4 are still out there. So I think Benjen and the other 4. So what the hell happened
I mean,
to Benjen?
at the end of the day, we only care about Benjen, so... It's
And
not that big.
so does John, apparently.
Yeah.
John only cares about Benjen, too. But what happened to him? Will we ever find out what happened to Benjen Stark?
I don't know. Maybe he's hiding out, subsisting on wriggling Walker meat.
Ew. Ew.
It's just like the octopus you get, where you pour the soy sauce on it.
And it wriggles.
Yeah.
Yeah, gross.
I don't know what that's called. Like sashimi.
Octopus sashimi. Yeah, I don't know what that is either. I would not know. Oh god.
What's oh god?
They're just looking at the next few chapters.
Oh.
Who we get to hang out with the next few chapters.
And who do we get to hang out with the next chapter?
Actually, the next chapter, we get to go see Bran.
Oh, that was kind of a letdown. Fingers crossed it was Tyrion.
But
we haven't talked to Bran in a long time.
We haven't seen Bran since I think he had the dream, right?
Yeah.
The flying dream, right?
No.
Or maybe there was one after that.
No, he was almost killed.
Oh yeah, in the forest
Yeah.
with the wildlings. That was the last chapter. That's right.
It has been a long time because I could barely remember. Yeah.
So yeah, and we get to go hang out with Bran next time. And I peeked ahead to the 2 chapters ahead. Neither of them are a Tyrion chapter.
What is that guy doing? Is he dead?
I don't know what that guy is doing. Still on the high road with Bronn and the mountain guys.
Oh yeah, I think he's just up there partying, drinking with the mountain guys.
Could be.
Partying like a mountain man.
Could be. You never know. Maybe he's chopping off private parts and feeding them to the goats. I don't know.
I guess... Actually, there's one other thing I want to mention about this past chapter. And the animals being, like, the most intelligent beings in this chapter, I think.
Yeah, for real.
The crow.
Oh,
Corn.
yeah, right?
And then we throw back to Bran's early chapters. He's always giving them corn.
Yeah, he's always giving the ravens corn. Very interesting.
Is it just a common trend that ravens love corn, or
Well, there's
are they
also
connected somehow?
if you want to read really deeply into it, a corn king is like a harvest king. So like you have like the summer king and the winter king, and the corn king is like the summer king and the bringer of the bounty and the harvest. So maybe the raven is, if the raven always says it when Jon is around, maybe Jon is the summer king. That was deep. That was a deep
Maybe.
tinfoil.
But the
kind of
raven
thing.
says it in the dream with Bran. So is Bran the summer king then? The corn king?
Maybe. Bran also named his direwolf Summer.
That's true.
I don't know. Oh, actually, about animals, real quick, I guess. I thought it was kind of cute that Jon felt naked and alone when Ghost went away, and when Ghost like ran off into the woods, he was all scared all of a sudden because Ghost wasn't with him. And then when Ghost came back, he felt much better, and then he was thinking about his sisters and how much they feel not having their wolves anymore, and how that was sad because Lady was dead.
And Nymeria was awesome.
Escapade somewhere. Wherever she is, who knows. But I don't know, I like those little mentions here and there about how close Jon and Ghost are becoming. Their bond is pretty deep, I think. And it's just so interesting that Ghost just doesn't speak.
I know. Doesn't make a sound.
He's quiet boy.
Even when he snarls.
It's
Even when
silent.
he's angry.
Yeah. Maybe that's why the Night's Watch tolerates him. He doesn't make any noise.
Maybe.
He doesn't howl or do any of that. He's quiet boy.
But yeah,
Anyway.
this was definitely a heavy chapter.
This is an
Since
awesome
we had like
chapter.
the Arya chapter, which was just like action, and then the Sansa chapter, which was just infuriating because you wanted to slap her. And
Yeah, the Sansa chapter was so frustrating.
Sansa, look at what's going on.
Yep. Read the room! And now we have, oh, by the way, here's some zombies.
Yeah.
Let's make it wild.
Here's some super plot openings.
Yeah, here is the unfolding of a major plot right here. Boom, zombies. But I mean, we're 3/4 of the way through the book, and John's plot has now started. Really started.
Yes.
So
Finally. And Samwell is becoming a bit braver, so I guess we'll see how that goes.
yeah, good for Sam, sticking up for himself.